Hello, boys and girls of the internet. Today we're going to discuss a phenomena that I think a lot of people aren't fully aware of. You don't always see, in fact, often you don't see, what it is you're shooting at in a combat environment. And more specifically, I mean, you don't have a point target. You don't see the bad guy and aim at him. All right? TLDR. Most small arms fire is at an area target in order to fix that target in position and allow either another team of soldiers to maneuver on them and conduct close combat, or allow munitions, be they fixed wing, rotary wing, or artillery, or even mortars, to be amassed on those enemy and destroy them. And then you can send your maneuver element in to simply do a dead check and battle damage assessment. Okay, so that's the TLDR. That's what the whole video is about. If you don't have a lot of time, cut it there. Most combat is conducted inside 0 to 300 meters. Almost all combat is conducted inside 600 meters. And the reason that is because that's how far people can see a concealed target, typically speaking. All right. So, and even if you're going to see that concealed target, a lot of times, right, you'll be like moving along, and then either you will see something, somebody will see movement in the tree line, and you'll see one guy get up and move and then crouch back down. And, then you'll stop and you'll wait and you'll really stare out there. And then maybe you'll see another guy get up and move. And maybe you think maybe a bush rustled. You'll be like, okay, there's like a fire team or a squad out here. Even though you've only seen one or two guys, right? And then if you decide to engage them, you're going to maybe engage those guys that you just saw, but you're also going to be engaging all of the areas that you think would be good pieces of cover and concealment in that general area. And then they're going to start to open up back at you. And based on now where you start to receive fire from, you can adjust where you're sending fire. Or you're that squad that gets identified, right? You're walking along and all of a sudden you start to receive fire and you just know it's coming from the right. You look to the right and you see that there's just this one jet of bush line, this tree line that comes out, and there's a bunch of pops and rounds coming from there. You can't see anybody, but you know that 100-meter wide section of tree line is where you're getting shot at from. So you're just going to engage anything and everything you possibly can see in that 100-meter, that 100-yard section of tree line you're getting shot at from. Okay, and that's what an area target is. A point target is an actual person. An area target is an area. A tree line, a ridge line, a clump of bushes, a house, a car, whatever the case is, right? So, I don't have a lot of really well thought out transitions for this video. I just kind of have some points that I know all correlate together. Getting into optic selection, optics and roles, right? Everybody talks about different magnifications, and as they're talking about, they're scheming in their mind different scenarios and different levels of seeing and being able to engage a point target, right? So no magnification, iron sights or a red dot. You're good to go on point targets inside 100 yards, and you're plenty well to engage area targets out to even 300, 400, 500 yards, depending on the shooter, right? Which is absolutely fine for riflemen, kind of sneak peeking some of the roles we're going to get into. 1x per 100 yards is great for allowing you to hit a point target that you know exists. Okay, so I know there's a point target over there. I'm getting shot at from that position, or somebody's told me there's bad guys over there, and I now can look that direction, and with 1x per 100 yards of magnification, I should be able to identify a point target and engage it that I know it's there. 2x per 100 yards magnification or more allows you to have reasonable ability to identify an unknown hidden target, right? So if I'm scanning a tree line and I don't even know if there's bad guys there or not, I need to have 2x or more magnification per 100 yards to be able to identify that there is in fact a target there when I did not previously know that. All right. So, let's kind of just talk about the roles of a rifleman initially and some of the optics choices he could have, right? So, a red dot or an iron sight allows him to engage most point targets he'll ever have to at close combat inside 100 yards. So, most of the time, if you're actually seeing a person and then shooting at that person, it's inside 100 yards. So, iron sights and a red dot allow you to do that, and you can still engage area targets out at distance. So, realistically, those are fine for your average rifleman. Stuff like the ACOG 3X, 4X, 5X stuff. I'll just talk specifically on the ACOG because that's what I have a bunch of experience on in the Marine Corps. Is a wonderful general rifleman optic, right? So it's giving you out at 1X, right? So I can engage 3, 4, 500 yards away at known target. You tell me there's people over there, I can use my optic and hit a person at 3, 4, 500 yards away. And also, I can identify people if I start to scan them and try to find those hidden targets at up to 200 yards, right? ACOG is 4x magnification, 2x per 100 yards to ID an unknown target. It's realistic to think that somebody with an ACOG could find a hidden combatant, hidden and concealed target at 200 yards, which puts us just outside of that average close combat range. So you're kind of increasing your ability to begin to do close combat out to 200 yards with an ACOG, which is a force multiplier over your enemy, over the average enemy, with just iron sights or the red dot. Especially back in the day, the GWOT, the ACOGs were king. As time goes on, magnification is continuing to increase. Now the average soldier or Marine or a combatant rifleman has an LPVO, right? So we're extending that top end up to 6 or 8x. I don't have to go through the numbers. You already have a good idea now. But while retaining a little bit of a better 1x, that's awesome. We get our optics is slightly more fragile because it has more moving parts and pieces, but that's a whole different story about optics. All right, then moving over into why nowadays we see a lot of DMRs that are running 5.56 or 308 gas guns, getting heavier optics up to the 3 to 18 or the 4 to 16. Some people even run the 5 to 25. And that's because those individuals, right, are moving out of the rifleman role into the designated marksman role. So they're no longer a rifleman. Their role is no longer to only engage point targets in close combat. Now they are that person that's supposed to ID and find and call out targets before the close combat, right? Hopefully we're able to see that enemy patrol before they see us because we have people utilizing their optics and stuff like that to look in the distance. That's why people are running larger and larger and larger optics, as well as it's the more modern conflicts. Everybody running multicam and being a fuck show is making it really difficult for people to identify who is friend, who is foe. So that increased magnification is going to help you identify not only that there is a target there, but what that target is, who that target is. All right. So I'll also briefly touch on the effectiveness of suppression because that's what we're kind of talking about, right? So like, what if I'm not shooting at a person and I'm just shooting into the tree line? How is that effective, right? Because it's creating suppression, right? There's kind of 3 different types of suppression. There's sporadic suppression, high volume suppression, and accurate suppression. Sporadic suppression is typically provided by riflemen. High volume suppression is typically provided by a belt-fed machine gun or at least an automatic weapon. And then accurate suppression is provided by some sort of a designated marksman or sniper or whatever terminology you want to give yourself. Okay. So sporadic suppression just means that in that area target, rounds are generally flying around. So if I'm hiding behind a tree or behind a rock or in a little bit of a foxhole or something, and I'm under sporadic suppression, there's rounds kind of just winging past me. I can zing, whiz, zap, snap. And like ever so often, one might impact the dirt within a couple feet of me, relatively close. Or maybe even perhaps it smacks into the cover I'm hiding behind. But that doesn't happen too often. So it's reasonable if I can be a bit brave that I might run from one position to the other or pick up and run away, because it's not that somebody's shooting at me, it's just that somebody's shooting in the direction. However, I do not any longer have freedom of movement. I can't just pick up and run 100 yards and reposition myself. And if I do begin to move around a bunch, I'm probably going to identify myself as a point target within this area target and become under either high volume or accurate suppression. Okay, so I still am suppressed, but I'm not unable to shoot or unable to kind of scoot around and move from one position to the other a little bit. A high volume fire suppression is provided by a belt-fed machine gun, and it just means it's like sporadic suppression, but with 5 to 10 times more amount of rounds coming through. So just due to the volume alone of rounds flying through my area, I'm now arguably pinned down. Maybe I can poke my head around the corner and take a shot, but I'm definitely not trying to get up out of cover and move from this position anywhere else because I'm a high likelihood of getting shot, possibly even multiple times. And then last but definitely not least would be accurate suppression. So if you are under pinpointed accurate fire, right, that means that it's not a group of riflemen or a machine gun engaging an area target. It's a group of designated marksmen or snipers covering an area target by engaging point targets. So what that will feel like as an individual, it's under that effect, right? You'll be hiding behind a tree or a rock, whatever the case is. And every time you poke your head out real quick, poke my head out just to get a peek and pop it back, the distance is probably such that the round isn't, they're not going to be able to hit you if you just pop out and pop back, which is why the turkey peek is so effective. But however, every time you turkey peek, all of a sudden 2 or 3 rounds impact, right, whiz right past where your head was, or smack, slap, thump right into that tree in front of you or that rock in front of you. And so you realize somebody's looking at me. And every time I poke my head out, they're shooting right at me effectively. So if I get up and move or try to take any sort of a well-aimed shot, I'm going to get hit. Almost guaranteed, for sure going to happen. And that is, in my opinion, arguably doctrinally some of the most effective suppression, right? And that's why we see like riflemen are only able to pin down groups of equally sized riflemen. Machine guns are able to pin down groups of larger sized, 4X for automatic riflemen, 8X or more for belt feds. But then we hear stories of just 2 or 3, or maybe even sometimes a single sniper holding down an entire squad or platoon or company of individuals. Because that accurate suppression is extremely psychologically effective. All right. There you go, boys and girls. That's why you don't always see the enemy.